Welcome to this edition of the Click and Pledge's Fundraising Command Center podcast, where we talk the why, the what, and the how in the Click and Pledge's ecosystem. And this is the Why series. In these deep dives, we try to look past the platform tools and get right to the fundamental psychology, the strategy that underpins every single effective donation.
Yeah.
Our mission today is, well, it's arguably the single biggest communication challenge out there in the digital space. Talking to a total stranger.
It's a seismic difference,
Yeah.
And it's one that trips up organizations constantly. When you communicate with an established supporter, we call them the friend, you have history.
Right.
You have trust, you have shared language, maybe even some inside jokes. You can afford to be nuanced.
But the stranger, that first-time visitor who just landed on your page from, I don't know, a search result or a stray social media click, they operate under a specific, really brutal constraint. They don't know your story. They don't know your impact.
And they certainly haven't invested any trust in you yet. None. To help you visualize this high-stakes environment, we suggest thinking of it as playing a game we call the charade in the dark.
Okay, I like that. A charade in the dark.
Yeah, imagine the internet as this massive pitch-black room. Your nonprofit is standing over in one corner, holding the perfect solution to a major problem.
And now the potential donor enters the room. They can't see you clearly. They can't hear your tone of voice. And here's the killer part. Because web visitors scan information so fast they don't read, you are effectively forbidden from using precise explanatory text.
Exactly. You have milliseconds. You have to convey a profound, world-changing message instantly in the dark before that stranger decides it's too much work and just leaves.
So our mission today is figuring out how to win that game of charades. Okay, let's pivot. Let's tackle the first core problem. How do two strangers who might want the exact same thing? How do they even meet? How do they agree on a starting point without communicating?
For that, you have to look back. We need to go to the 1960 work of the Nobel-winning economist Thomas Schelling,
The Strategy of Conflict,
a landmark book.
an absolute game changer. Schelling's work is genius because it addresses coordination in a total vacuum. He gave people this famous puzzle, he said. If you had to meet a complete stranger in New York City tomorrow, but you couldn't agree on a time or a place beforehand, zero communication, where would you go?
And the answer almost always is Grand Central Station at noon.
Overwhelmingly. Time and time again.
Then why is that?
Because in the absence of information, people naturally choose the most obvious, the most prominent, the most salient spot. That's the Schelling Point. Or the focal point. It's the solution that everyone converges on because it is just the most obvious, the most natural choice. It requires no explanation.
Like stopping at a red light.
Perfect example. It's a Schelling Point for drivers. Everyone knows that signal means stop. No discussion needed. But what strikes me here is, okay, how do we apply a theory about a physical place like Grand Central Station to the absolute chaos of the digital world? The web isn't one station. It's an infinite dark forest.
That's the crucial challenge. And the beauty of the Schelling Point is that it's about reducing choice, not explaining complexity. So for the charade in the dark, we recommend the nonprofit has to create a visual Schelling Point.
Okay, so that's the aha moment, the fundraising application. The donor wants to solve problem X, the organization solves problem X. They both want the same thing, but they're in the dark. So the nonprofit needs a single, powerful image that acts as the only logical meeting spot.
Exactly. This signal has to be so obvious, so immediate, and so resonant with the problem the donor already cares about that the stranger sees it and thinks, aha, that is exactly where I was meant to go today.
It's the lighthouse in the digital fog.
It instantly coordinates their intention with your location.
So if we've coordinated the meeting, now we have to tackle the second problem. How do we communicate the solution without text?
And this is where cognitive science steps in. Specifically, the work of Christiansen and Charades in their book, The Language Game.
Right. They have a very different take on language.
A totally different take. They argue against that old view of language as some kind of rigid, static code. Instead, they see it as a constant, improvised game of charades. We don't just use words, we use gestures, tone, context, feedback, all to align our brains in real time. It's dynamic.
That dynamic part is so key. When I'm playing charades with you face-to-face, if I see confusion on your face, I change my gestures. I adapt. But online, that entire feedback loop is just broken.
Yeah, completely broken. The nonprofit is standing in the dark acting out the solution, but they can't see the donor's confusion.
Yeah.
And that broken loop creates what we call the now or never bottleneck.
Now or never.
Yeah. In the real world, miscommunication leads to adaptation. Online, Miscommunication leads to abandonment. If your signal fails to land instantly, if the stranger doesn't get it right away, they are gone.
So, if text is out and the feedback loop is gone, the only thing left is the visual. The solution has to rely entirely on visual primacy.
You have to act out the solution using that visual anchor, that Schelling Point we just defined, instead of long mission statements.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about it this way, which is faster for a total stranger. Reading a 50-word paragraph detailing your global microloan strategy.
Or seeing a single, clear, high-contrast photograph of a mother holding a new book.
Right. If the visual is the solution, the stranger instantly understands the game. They guess the answer without burning any effort.
Which leads us perfectly to motivation. Why? Why is the brain so compelled to choose the clear visual over the complex text? What's going on there?
Well, we need to look at the brain not as a computer, but as a prediction machine. Its most fundamental goal, scientifically speaking, is to minimize free energy.
And free energy is basically surprise, disorder.
Surprise, disorder, entropy. The brain hates uncertainty because uncertainty is metabolically expensive. It costs real, precious energy to process the unknown.
It's mental friction. I mean, think about having 40 browser tabs open, all screaming for your attention. That feeling of being totally overloaded.
That's high free energy.
And that state of chaos makes your brain desperately seek the simplest way out.
Exactly. So in our charade in the dark, the new donor enters your website in a state of high free energy. They are surrounded by digital chaos. They're asking all these questions. What is this? What do they do? Do I trust them?
And the failed strategy is precisely the one we see most often.
But all the time.
Giving them more text, more paragraphs, more to read.
Which just increases the cognitive load. It forces the stranger to burn energy to do mental gymnastics just to figure out what you're trying to say. And they recoil. They leave the dark room because the lights just aren't coming on fast enough.
So the winning strategy is?
The winning strategy is delivering that clear visual Schelling point. It instantly matches their internal prediction, it resolves the uncertainty, and it dramatically lowers their cognitive load. It's that moment of relief, you know. The brain realizes, okay, I don't have to spend energy here. I get it.
You know, this is ringing a bell for me. This connects back to previous conversations we've had. For our listeners who remember episodes 22 and 23.
Oh, absolutely.
This is exactly that free energy concept in action. The donor is trying to lower their own entropy, right? They're moving from a state of chaos to a state of order.
That is the core of it. We suggest that the donation itself is the mechanism the donor uses to make that move. They transition from the chaotic, high-entropy state of confusion on the web, where do I put my energy, how do I solve this, to an ordered state by taking a clear action. They give money to buy certainty, to buy resolution.
Wow. That's a profound shift in perspective. It's not about our organization. It's about the donor executing a psychological transaction, moving themselves from disorder to clarity.
And that psychological process, it mirrors the oldest stories we tell. This entire structure is codified by Joseph Campbell in The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Which George Lucas famously used to create Star Wars.
Yep, it's the same pattern.
Okay, let's talk about that, the narrative implications. Because we have to address the critical role reversal that so many organizations get wrong. They always want to be the protagonist.
And that is the mistake. We suggest the nonprofit is not the hero. The organization is the guide.
The guy.
You are Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're in the dark. You hold the solution, the lightsaber, and you wait patiently in the shadows.
And the stranger, our new donor, they are the potential hero. They're Luke Skywalker.
Exactly. But initially, they're reluctant. They're afraid of the dark room because they're experiencing high entropy. They're uncertain about the risk, the commitment, the path forward.
So the visual Schelling point, that one perfectly clear, undeniable signal.
That acts as the call to adventure.
It's the Princess Leia hologram.
It's the hologram. It cuts through all the noise and chaos and projects this unavoidable personal invitation that says, you have a role to play in solving this.
So when the donor recognizes that signal, that Schelling point, they accept the call by choosing to donate. They're the ones who bring order to the chaos. They complete the circuit that the nonprofit just started.
The donor becomes the agent of resolution. They aren't donating to make the nonprofit feel good about being the hero. They're donating to fulfill their own psychological need to move from uncertainty to action.
Wait. So you're saying the entire success of the communication hinges not on how great our organization is, but on how clearly we can signal to the donor that they are the one who gets to save the day.
Precisely. Without that clear signal, without that immediate, undeniable visual Schelling point, the whole game of charades is just a person waving their arms hopelessly in the dark. It is the donor's willingness to pick up the lightsaber that validates the entire effort.
So what does this all mean for your strategy right now? The ultimate takeaway is not to strive to be the all-powerful hero organization,
Yeah.
but to be the clear, unmistakable guide who lights the path. Stop trying to explain the entire library with text and start creating that single, undeniable signal.
And here's a thought for you to explore. If your nonprofit is Obi-Wan Kenobi, what is the single, unmistakable visual Schelling point that serves as your Princess Leia hologram? How quickly can you get the lightsaber, the mechanism for action, into the hero's hands?
A fantastic provocation to end on. For more information about this and all Click and Pledge products, make sure to visit clickandpledge.com and request a one-on-one training or demo. Whether you are a current client or just curious about our platform, just ask us and we will gladly get together with you to chat. And don't forget to subscribe to this deep dive series to stay up to date with all the latest and greatest strategies coming out of the Click and Pledge Fundraising Command Center.